You've probably already heard of the Wim Hof Method. It's a really powerful breathing technique that in the short term can help improve mental clarity, energy and resistance to the cold. I've been practicing this technique probably for about 3 years, but in the last year I've really focused on it and made it a part of my daily routine, and I've started to see some really great long-term benefits. In this video we're going to talk about how by incorporating the Wim Hof Method into your routine, varying things such as the intensity of the method, the duration that you do it for and the time of day that you do it, you can really specifically tailor the Wim Hof Method to get exactly what you want from it and really supercharge your results. For those that are new to the channel, my name's Tom, and here we explore living with simplicity and purpose in a world of distraction and noise. In this video we're going to be talking about the Wim Hof technique. First, I'm going to explain exactly what the technique is before quickly discussing a bit of the science behind it. Then we're going to look at the short and long-term benefits you can expect from implementing this into your routine before looking at different ways that you can really tailor the method for the exact results that you want to achieve. Finally, we're just going to look at some basic equipment that you can use to really optimize the method, and then just look at some potential pitfalls that you're going to want to avoid when incorporating Wim Hof breathing into your routine. With the amount of videos and hype out there about the Wim Hof method, you'd be forgiven for thinking this was some really complicated, nuanced breathing routine. And nothing could really be further from the truth. It's incredibly simplistic in how it works. All you basically do is breathe at a certain tempo in and out for an extended period of time. Usually it's between 30 and 50 breaths. You then hold your breath and then repeat the process all over again. Scientifically, how this works is when you hyperventilate, your CO2 levels drop, and this is nothing surprising. Apparently, if you're working in an A&E ward, you're going to see this very often for people who might come in with asthma attacks. What's really interesting about the science behind the Wim Hof method is that when you hold your breath, your oxygen levels actually drop, and this releases endocannabinoids. And these are the chemicals that are released that really lead to this sort of feeling of elation that you might get after performing the practice, similar to something like a runner's high. If you're more interested in the science behind the method, I'll leave a link in the description. It's a guy called Midlife Crisis. He does a really good job in explaining that. Surprisingly, even though I have a degree in chemical engineering, I'm not really too bothered about the science behind the Wim Hof method. Wim Hof himself has noted how important it is to get the science out there so that people will not be so skeptical about it and actually sort of take some action to try it out. But I think that really science has its limitations when we look at something like meditation, breathing, diet. It really is such a personal and individual thing that I think the best thing that you can do is just have a go. Realize that it's not going to solve all of your problems, not be dogmatic about it, but just sort of have your own direct experience about what a technique like this could offer. Now, the reason that people practice this method is obviously because they want to see some kind of result, and I think it's very important to make the distinction between the short-term benefits that the Wim Hof method brings and the longer-term results that you can achieve if you practice it for an extended period of time. Now, the short-term benefits of the Wim Hof method, they're going to be really apparent to you as soon as you do your first round of breathing. It's not like meditation where, in my opinion, even the short-term benefits take a few months to manifest. With Wim Hof breathing, you're going to notice it straight away. These benefits are generally going to be improved energy. You're going to find that after a session, you're going to feel really energized. Also better mental clarity. I think Wim Hof breathing, and especially the breath hold, can put you into a very meditative state, so really can help you with clarity of thought. Also, I think it can be helpful to think expansively. So if you're trying to think creatively about a problem, I often maybe will do some Wim Hof breathing to just try and get my mind into a slightly different realm than what I would be in sort of my normal conscious state. So the main two longer term benefits that you're going to see, I think, are firstly that your normal meditation practice, you're going to find that you can go a lot deeper in that. I find that by doing the Wim Hof method combined with a normal meditation, it's really helped me to just go a bit deeper into that. And also you're probably going to notice that you're breathing through your belly a lot more. A lot of us are sort of mouth breathers nowadays. We breathe and only our chest moves. If this is a problem for you, I actually think that the Wim Hof Method is a really great tool to help you breathe through your belly more. But I think a really important point to make is that the results you're going to achieve from the Wim Hof Method vary massively depending on what your practice actually looks like. And that's why I'm going to spend the rest of the video just talking through different ways you can incorporate the routine and also different ways you can change it up depending on the kind of results that you're looking for. The first thing I want to talk about is timing, and for me there's sort of 3 key times in the day that you can perform this practice, and I think each of them lend themselves to a slightly different result. So the first is the morning. Now when I did the Wim Hof Method to start with, probably for the first 2 years, I wasn't doing it every day, maybe like a couple of times a week, I would always do it in the morning. And this is because I found that it really gave me that energy to get up and go, and it was just a really great way to start the day. It really sort of cleared my head. I wouldn't necessarily have to rely on coffee like I do so much now. And yeah, just doing that for 10-15 minutes in the morning, a great way to start the day. Recently I've actually transitioned to doing it in the evening. I've done this for a couple of reasons. The main one is if I do it in the evening, I'm not necessarily pressured to then go and do something else after. And I find this lends itself really well to doing the practice for like 15-20 minutes, and then I'll just do some meditation for like half an hour or an hour or even longer afterwards. And because I've started off doing the breathing itself, it just leads to a really, really deep meditation practice. So that's why I favour doing it in the evening now. The third time that you might want to consider doing this technique is actually what I like to call as like a reset. So if I've got a particularly important business call coming up, or some time when I really need to be on top form, just lying down for 10 minutes, even if it's just on like the wooden floor here before I jump on a call, and doing a few rounds of breathing really does just help you put into, get yourself into an optimal state of mind so that you can really go and smash that meeting or whatever it might be. So yeah, 3 different ways that you can incorporate the Wim Hof Method into your daily routine. I tend to 90% of the time do it in the evening, and then maybe 5% when I just want to reset myself in the day, and maybe 5% in the morning if it's a weekend and I don't have much to do. One other important thing to mention actually about the evening practice is it's probably going to be really beneficial for your sleep. It's really counterintuitive because in the morning it gives you energy, yet somehow if you do in the evening it makes you tired. I have no idea why, but that's what I found for me. My girlfriend though actually found the opposite. She found that when she did the breathing technique it sort of amped her up, so just something for you to play around with. The second variable that you can control while doing the Wim Hof Method is the duration that you're doing it for. It's probably advisable to start out like with anything, like you wouldn't go into the gym and like bench press 200 kilograms, you'd go in and start on 50, 60. So it's probably advisable that you start off just doing like a minute of 30 breaths of breathing and then a minute breath hold, something like that, and then maybe do that twice, maybe then build up to 3 times. But you're probably going to find yourself as you explore the practice further that you're just going to naturally start to want to do it for longer and longer. At the moment I'm working myself up to sort of 3 to 3.5 minute breath holds, and I just find that provides a little bit more intensity. Now you might not actually be wanting too much of an intense practice, you might not be wanting to have these sort of deep, insightful thoughts. What you might want to do is just give yourself a bit of energy at the start of the day, in which case just do a minute hold, do a 30 breaths, don't go up to like 50 breaths, 2 minute hold, something like that. Just sort of figure out what works best for you. Now if you really want to take it to the extreme, something that I do maybe like once a month or even less is I'll like go all in and do like maybe half an hour of this breathing. Matt DiBella did a really great video on, I think he called it like holotropic breathwork. I think holotropic breathwork is basically the Wim Hof Method but just a bit more extreme. So whereas the Wim Hof Method it's usually like a few minutes of a breath hold at max and maybe 30 or 40 breaths. With the holotropic breathwork you're hyperventilating and maybe you're doing 100, 200, 300 breaths, basically as many as you can until you can't physically breathe anymore. Then you stop, chill out, and then do it again. I've done this a few times, but the experience is completely removed from the Wim Hof one. You'll have almost out-of-body experiences. It gets really quite weird. It can get a bit dark actually. So something that you definitely want to be careful with. But just another tool that you could maybe use if you're wanting to do a bit more of the sort of spiritual exploration or whatever you want to call it. Now the next thing we should talk about is equipment. Now don't get me wrong, like having any sort of equipment should not be a barrier for you starting this practice if it's something that you haven't done already. I just think there's a few tools that you can use that really help you to go a bit deeper into the practice. The first one, and I think probably the most important, is having a blindfold. I really think that having a blindfold on and just being in a completely dark environment really helps you to get a bit deeper into the breathing itself and just eliminates any distractions. Also, I have like weird sort of colours going on when I do it, which can become quite a cool thing to explore, and I find that when I have the blindfold on, those colours are just amplified even more. I don't know why that is, but just something that you might want to experiment with. The second thing you might want to consider doing is getting some headphones and either listening to a guided session or listening to some music. Now, when it comes to meditation, I'm not actually a big fan of like guided meditations. I think they can almost become like a crutch and to stop you from just being mindful with yourself. But I really do think that with the Wim Hof Method, having it guided is so beneficial because it helps you keep the exact correct tempo that is prescribed, that I think makes the practice a lot more effective. So you're probably going to want to get some headphones, and there's a load of YouTube videos out there that sort of build up to different length breath holds. So yeah, definitely something that you should consider, I think, getting a decent pair of headphones and either listening to a guided session or just there's like shamanic drumming out there, which I think is specifically made for this kind of breathing, which also I find to be quite helpful sometimes. The other thing that I've started doing recently is just wrapping myself up in a blanket. That's because when I do the longer breath holds, I find that my body temperature can change quite a lot and it actually becomes a little bit distracting. So if you're cocooned up in something really warm and snuggly, and you're not having that like massive temperature fluctuation, it just sort of brings a bit more focus, I think, back to the actual breathing itself. You don't really want any distractions at all, which is actually another important point to mention. Don't do this method like if someone else is in the room. I think that's probably a bad idea. It's much better just to do it on your own when you're not worrying about other people walking around or anything like that. So let's talk about some of the pitfalls with this method that I've personally experienced. I think the first one is to view Wim Hof breathing as a replacement for meditation. I've actually been doing that for a while now. Only recently I've started fully meditating again, just because I thought with the Wim Hof breathing I'm already doing like something that's mindful. I actually don't think that's really the case. While I think, like I mentioned earlier, the Wim Hof breathing can help to support an existing meditation practice, I'm not necessarily sure that in itself, especially if you're only doing it for like 10 minutes, it's going to really help with mindfulness, because you're only in that deep, relaxing state while you're doing the breath holds. For me personally, when I'm actually doing the breathing, I find it very difficult to concentrate on the breath itself because it's quite uncomfortable. So I definitely think that you should look at this as a complement to a meditation practice if you're looking to improve your mindfulness rather than a replacement. The only other pitfall that I can potentially see with this method is to think that it's going to work for you just because it works for somebody else. Like, this is something very personal, and I've seen some friends of mine who've tried to incorporate the Wim Hof practice but haven't really seen the best results. It's just a very personal thing, and even though I'm giving out this advice to you about things that have worked for me, it's purely meant so that you can go and try it out for yourself, experiment with doing it different times of day, experiment with the different durations, and maybe listening to some music or wearing a blindfold. Don't necessarily take it as something that's very prescriptive. It's very much just advice that you can, if you want, take on board, but ultimately know that your experience is going to be different from mine. And I think this is true with nearly all sort of exercises that are within this realm. So thanks a lot for sticking around to the end of the video. I hope that's given you some insights and tips and tricks into how you can improve your Wim Hof breathing. I'll leave a link here to another video that I did on meditation that you might want to check out. Yeah, thanks a lot and have a great day.